Spacey Sims, and we are back with more Taisho Alice in the Wizard's Route. I'm so excited. I love him so much. Okay. Anyway, so we're going to just jump right back in where we left off. So, sorry about all the drama this morning. The two of us walked side by side in the direction of my college. Oh, I'm not bothered. I'm glad to see they all have fun together. It made me happy to see him smile. It makes me happy to see him smile, too. He's like so overjoyous. My God, we all need a wizard in our life. Why was it not clicking? I clicked it like 3 times. I don't know, there's something wrong. My computer just hates my mouse. I don't know. Right? They have such a close bond with each other. I grinned proudly. However, and yet your presence has thrown everything out of whack. And yet your presence has thrown everything out of whack? In contrast with his gentle tone, his words were barbed. Love is a demon that can corrupt even the smartest of people. But there are good things about it, too. Love makes people stronger. So perhaps you could change them. All I know for certain is this. You're a positive, healing presence in their lives. Okay, now you're exaggerating. I laughed. You really think so? As we discussed last night, each of them has deep emotional trauma. What they need is love and understanding. And you have the strength to accept them as they are, and we did. In all of their routes. We have the strength to accept you as you are too, Mr. Wizard. Don't they need time too? Yes, it'll certainly take some time to heal their wounds. As time passes, their old memories will fade to make room for new ones. But those old memories never truly go away, and nothing can change the fact that those events happened. Besides, not everyone has the luxury of time. Because time is limited? Precisely. Time only goes forward, never backward, and no one knows which day will be their last. It might be tomorrow, or the day after that. Or the day before the day after tomorrow? That's tomorrow. Wasn't that South Park? It was like making fun of the day after tomorrow. And I always have to stop and think about it, though. The day before, the day after tomorrow, the day before, the day after tomorrow was tomorrow, right? It's like... I don't know why, it just amuses me so much, but it does. Anyway. Or the next full moon, in my case. Right. Which is why we must find the culprit before it's too late. I snuck a peek at his face and profile. His handsome features were pointed not at me, but straight ahead. I have no intention of letting you die. Well, yeah, you're a detective, right? I said, looking back at the road ahead. He was here purely to solve the case. And to that end, perhaps he was right to search our souls. Can I ask you something? What made you start your own detective agency? Good question. I suppose you could say I had the skills for the job. Functionally, I'm a jack of all trades. I'll do whatever needs to be done. One could even say it's my sworn mission. Your mission? A mission so important, it gives my entire life purpose. Perhaps it's better described as my destiny. Destiny. At this, I thought back over my own life. Thus far, things had been pretty uneventful. But while those idyllic days were something I cherished, a part of me mourned the fact that I passed through them without accomplishing much. This all changed once my This all changed! Why can't I say changed today? What is wrong with me? Good Lord, I'm losing... Anyway. This all changed once my 5 fiancés entered the picture, however. I think it's really great that you have something worth dedicating your whole life to. I'm honored you feel that way. It makes all my effort worthwhile. But now that I was being blackmailed, my life had gotten even more hectic. Of course, if I simply followed the letter's orders and chose someone to marry, this whole crisis could be averted. But was that really what I wanted? Was it right to simply keep chugging along the same track, letting someone else pull the switches as they saw fit? She looks over at us. What? Girl, you're the one that's forcing me to make these choices for you. But that's exactly what we're doing here. Oh my god, this game is so freaking self-aware. It's weird. Would it lead me to a greater purpose? Whoa! Out of nowhere, I tripped over something and lost my balance. Are you alright? Before I knew it, the wizard had pulled me into his arms. Again, hi, could we get a CG here? Like, come on. I don't mind you getting lost in thought, but I must ask you not to lose track of your surroundings. Right. Sorry about that. I stammered hastily. I could feel his arms around my waist, and his handsome face was so close to mine. Anyone would have been flustered in my shoes. Anyone would have been flustered in my shoes. Yeah. That makes... Like, sometimes I can't read, okay? Like, we know this. I'd be flustered. I am a little flustered. Hi. Kiss me, wizard. Anyway. I can only imagine the smug grin on Cinderella's face if he found out I tripped on the way to college. I laughed to distract from my embarrassment. Indeed. Smiling, the wizard slowly let go of me. Please don't. Thanks. Whispers quietly. Don't let go of me. So, what are you doing here? Well, you see, I had a few questions I wanted to ask. At lunch, when I arrived at the courtyard, I found a visitor waiting for me at my usual spot. He wasn't even hiding. He was eating a sandwich right out in the open. Granted, acting casual was usually a good way to avoid looking suspicious. But in his case, it wasn't really working. Well, hey, if it isn't old Mr. Wizard, what are you... Wait, I know, you're on an undercover investigation. My lunch buddy Wolf took one look at the wizard and started babbling excitedly. Oh, I thought I clicked, but I guess not. If I was, then you would have just blown my cover. You two know each other? Something to that effect. Yeah. Interesting. As it happens, I came here to speak with both Wolf and Ryoshi. Me? Oh, is this about the case? Correct. I wanted to talk to the people closest to Lady Arisu. Since Ryoshi isn't here yet, I'll start with you, Wolf. Ready! He raised his hand eagerly. What relationship do you have with Lady Arisu? Well, obviously. We're friends. Best friends. I smiled brightly. Will you let me finish? You're her best friend, I see. Where did you first meet her? At college, duh. I heard there was a hot transfer student, so I went to ask her out and she shot me down. Sorry, I'm interested in someone else? Yeah, that was the exact reason she gave. And then I saw her walking with him one day and I was like, whoa. Because it turned out her crush was someone I knew. And who was that? Blondie. Red Riding Hood. Red Riding Hood doesn't really have blonde hair, though. Like, it's not exactly blonde. Like, I look at Alice as being blonde. Their colors are kind of off, like, in my brain. Like, well, Ryoshi, well, okay, they say he has, like, ash gray hair. Okay, I can see that because it's, like, whitish. But, like, Red Riding Hood always looks like, well, I get dirty blonde, maybe? I don't know. We'll have to go back and look at him. But I always feel like his hair's, like, more brown, but... And what relationship do you have with him? We're old friends. Even if our old friendship only lasted, like, 2 months. See, I'm not originally from here, but when I was little, I used to be really sickly. So at one point, I came out here to live with my grandma and recuperate. And all of these stories are all tied in now. Like, so kind of like Red Riding Hood's story, kind of what we're getting told. Snow White's story, kind of what we're being, like, we're getting to the point where it's like, everything's coming out, like, this one blows my mind, because it's like, everything is all, now all those stories are kind of into one, and we've turned them all into one story, which is bizarre. Because, like, but they do, because you know what I mean? Like, Snow White lives alone with his mom, but now he's got 4 brothers, but they explain that away like, yeah, they didn't live with us. I mean, okay, I mean, yeah, you know what, there's not a lot of detail to it, like, but why don't they live with you, and why did your mother abandon Kaguya and he was living in an orphanage? None of it makes sense, but yet it's all happening, and yet you're like, oh, I mean, none of it makes sense, but it makes sense, if that makes any sense, without making sense, you know what I mean? Like, anyway. And you met him around then?
Yeah, exactly. He'd always be sitting at the lake in the middle of a weekday, so I got curious and struck up a conversation with him,
And they always all sit around the lake. I'm just saying.
right as we got to be good pals, some stupid stuff happened, and then I had to go back home to my parents.
So you lost contact with him.
Pretty much.
How many years ago was that?
Like 6? I remember it was around February or March.
So what brings you back here to the countryside? You're not sick again, are you?
No way. As you can see, these days I'm in a lot better shape. I came back here because I wanted to see Blondie again.
Oh,
I came back here because I wanted to see Blondie again.
That was your whole reason for moving back?
Yeah.
So? Why? Is it weird? Are you in love with Red Riding Hood? That's adorable. Red Riding Hood and the wolf. Oh, I ship it.
I can't really explain it, but I just couldn't get him off my mind.
How so?
Well, whenever we hung out, he'd sometimes get this pained look on his face. He'd be totally normal, and then suddenly he'd get all scared, so I'd ask him, "What's wrong?" And then he'd immediately say, "Nothing." At the time, it didn't really bother me, but...
Do you know anything about his family?
Nah, I know all his brothers, but I'm not close to them or anything. Some of them I've never talked to, like Snow White.
No surprise there, given he's a shut-in.
Yeah, exactly. Real talk, I had no idea Blondie had so many dang brothers. It blew my mind when I first met him.
He spoke wistfully with a goofy smile on his face.
Hate to say it, but for the most part, Allie Sue and Mr. Huntsman would know a lot more than I do. I'm just a side character, you know? I'm only here to help out.
But right as I was starting to think Wolf had handled this pretty awesomely, the wizard dropped a bombshell. I see. One last question. Are you the culprit?
Oh yeah, it's me, baby.
Naturally, Wolf played along.
Okay then, you're under arrest.
The wizard reached into God knows where and pulled out a pair of giant handcuffs, large enough to fit over the sleeves of Wolf's riding hood. God knows where and pulled out handcuffs. I'm not even, I don't know where you got them, but I'm intrigued.
Mr. Wizard!
You're coming with me. Deputy Arisu, file the report.
Ryokai.
Yes, sir. Ryokai. Yes, sir. I cheerfully saluted him.
What? You guys!
At my betrayal, Wolf dropped his joker shtick and started pleading his innocence. Jokester shtick. Feeling bad for the poor guy, I tapped the wizard on the shoulder, but... what to do? Guilty until proven innocent, as they say.
No, they don't! That's backwards!
Wolf was getting desperate. What are you people up to? Just then Ryoshi turned up, same as ever.
Mr. Huntsman, save me!
Wolf pleaded like he was begging for his life, but Ryoshi merely offered him a passing glance. You can have him for all I care. Maybe a few days in the slammer will shut him up for once. Harsh.
What? Come on! Not you too, Mr. Huntsman!
So what are you doing here? Ryoshi ignored Wolf's wails and turned to the wizard. I had a few questions I wanted to ask. Likewise, the wizard replied as if nothing was amiss.
You guys? If you're gonna just ignore me, can you at least uncuff me? Hello? Can you please uncuff me?
Pipe down or I'll put your ass in solitary.
Yes, sir.
This game is so fun. It really is. I don't know if it's just the translation or if it's the writing and the fact that the translation is just really good. You know what I mean? It's such a good translation, but I just wonder, in the original Japanese, is the story just, nah, it's just as damn good, if you knew the nuances of Japanese. You know what I mean? But God, I love it, and I can appreciate this translation so fucking hard, so... the game, the translation, both of them together are like peanut butter and jelly, man. It's fucking amazing, and it's a gift from the universe. Once Wolf was shuffled off stage, it was Ryoshi's turn in the spotlight. So, tell me, Ryoshi, what's your current occupation? What? Ryoshi frowned dubiously. Then he seemed to intuit the meaning behind the question. I'm a hunter. He answered with a stoic expression. And what does a hunter do? Ha! Thank you, wizard, because they keep confusing me with this. Oh my god. Okay. Ryoshi, we are in a mental institution, and Ryoshi is our doctor. He's not really our brother. He's our doctor. Because they kept calling him like a doctor, and then they called him a hunter, and then, okay, so this makes sense. They might have explained this once before, but like, I'm just saying right now, it's like all the pieces kind of fit. Like, put simply, a healer of undiagnosed neurological trauma is a mental health doctor. We're called hunters for short. And what did I say earlier? Like, maybe Ryoshi's just our doctor and we're in a mental institution. And, like, all the pieces, like, we're getting closer and closer to the story. So, like, in this one, the one right before Alice's route, right, would be, like, all of their stories and, like, the wizard being like, they all have some kind of emotional trauma, right? And we're fixing them. And then we woke up, remember? And it was like, they're doctors, so you're the only one that can help them. And it's like, we're helping them, but are we helping them? Like, in Snow White's, we actually went into a magic mirror, but, like, are we to believe that in this world, magic actually does exist? Or when we get to the end, it's going to be like, we wake up, we were in a mental institution, but these were all of the other people, like, maybe not an institution, but you know what I mean? Like, we're in a hospital. These are all people, we all have emotional trauma, mental trauma, where, you know, we all have problems, and we're trying to help each other. And so we're just like, right now, we're just dreaming these stories, trying to help our fellow inmates. You know what you know what I mean? Like, there's like something, this is all coming down, and maybe we're just a figment of Alice's imagination. I don't know. Like, there's something, there's bits and pieces. Like, I don't know what it is. Nobody tell me if you know what don't tell me. I don't want to know until we get to Alice's route. I just like throwing out theories. Like, there's bits and pieces of truth in my theories somewhere. Like, are we just a figment of Alice's imagination? Like, Alice is obviously supposed to be quote-unquote the canon kind of route, I'm assuming, you know? But, like, all of them, like, now, like, Snow White had maybe those were real issues that he had. You know what I mean? Like, but we've created this story in our head about it. And it could either be a dream or it's a fantasy world to help him, you know? But then what's our neurological trauma that we're all in, that, like, we could be all in the hospital, or these are like just dreams that we're having, or they're all pieces of ourself that we're working out. So maybe all of the little bits and pieces, like, our mother is actually dead, but she told us to never leave the house, and, like, our creepy stepbrother wanted to put us in a cage and we liked it, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe all of these stories and all these characters in here aren't even real, and they're all just versions of ourself, and we're trying to, either we created multiple personalities, or they're characters in our head to help us deal with the trauma. You know what I mean? Like, Snow White is dealing with the fact that, you know, he found his mom dead and he disobeyed his mother, and we have an actual trauma where our mother died and we blamed ourselves, so we created Snow White in our mind to try to work through those. You know what I mean? It'd be like, okay, I want you to write a story, but from somebody's perspective. It's not you, but it is you. You know what I mean? But it's like we're doing this in our head, you know? Something like that. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway. Fun fact, his name even means hunter in Japanese. I mean, huntsman. Yeah, I mean, in English. Indeed it does. Oh, right, Ryoshi. It's like, well, he's huntsmen. Don't keep that. They've pointed out multiple times. For the record, I specialize in psychiatric and emotional wellness. He's really is a doctor in the real world, wherever that is, I know. What's your relationship to Lady Arisu? She's my younger sister. By birth, I might add. You knew that, didn't you? Yes, but I wanted to make sure. Why don't you and your sister live together? Well, Ryoshi faltered, then looked at me, especially because if in the quote-unquote Fandis there's a Ryoshi route, he can't be her brother. So you would think that, like, oh, he's really our doctor, and then we fell in love with him, which is weird, but it's less creepy. It's like, you should not date your therapist, okay? That's weird, and I feel like that's some kind of violation. But, like, also less creepy and weird than, like, he's our brother and we want to bone him. I'm just saying, so.
Is that why you want to give
Is it that you want to give her and her fiancé some privacy? Yeah, that. It's complicated. I'm on good terms with some of them, but others not so much. Figured the easiest option would be to remove myself from the equation. Any thoughts regarding their premarital cohabitation? Dude, it's 2021. What the fuck? What year is it in this world? It's like the frickin' like 1930s up in here. I mean, they're all grown adults. What do you want me to say? You sound like a pragmatic and understanding brother. At this, Ryoshi visibly scowled. For the record, how much do you know about the five brothers? All of it. I know everything there is to know. Their pasts, their personalities. Of course, I forgot who I was talking to. In that case, how do you feel towards Snow White? When I spoke to Wolf, he mentioned that he didn't know much about Snow White specifically. At the mention of Snow White, Ryoshi quirked a brow. I mean, I'm not surprised. Even I haven't seen him in years now. Why is that? It's not for lack of trying, I'll say that. He refuses to meet with me. Because he's a shut-in? Right. Although he wasn't quite as reclusive back when I first met him. Where did you first meet him? It was in the springtime, about 6 years back. I saw him standing around on the lakeshore in the middle of the night, so I called out to him. Because you notice they're all standing at the lakeshore, so again, that could be like, were we standing at the lakeshore and they're all part of us? Or is this like Alice's trauma? And he was the one standing at the lakeshore, and then all these little pieces kind of all fit into one part. You know what I mean? I don't know. I got lots of millions of theories, and none of them are... They're all sorts of off, but... Speaking of Snow White, I understand he discovered his mother's corpse. Yeah, that's correct, but it's worse than that. He was living with his mother's corpse. And that's what turned him into a shut-in. A heavy silence dominated the air. No one said a word. Then finally, Ryoshi asked, So did you figure out the culprit? No, not yet. Thus far I've spoken with each of the five brothers. The wizard glanced my way. Anything stand out to you? They all seem... Oh, does anything stand out to you? I thought they were talking to me, and then I realized he was talking to the wizard. Okay. They all seem suspicious, but at the same time, they all seem innocent, too. That's all I can say for now. In other words, no, I haven't found anything yet. I love it when he stands like this. He's so beautiful. He shrugged with a smile. These things take time, I guess. Ryoshi let out a long sigh, then walked up to me and put his hand on my head. Try not to get yourself killed, all right? Aw. Thanks, big bro. Ryoshi, you jerk! On the way home, I thought back to my brother's attitude and raged quietly while the wizard laughed at me. This isn't funny, you know. I pouted my lips. You know he does worry about you, right? Yes, I know. We had spent our whole lives living separately, so we weren't exactly close, but I knew he was a caring person. After all, he'd been looking after the five brothers since way before I showed up. Yes, Ryoshi was taking care of them in the mental institution before we ended up here, and now we're helping them somehow. Maybe. Look, I'm just saying. This reminded me of the question I've been meaning to ask the wizard since this afternoon. So, pretty small world we live in, huh? I knew you and Ryoshi were acquainted, but Wolf too? Nobody told me about this. I was, of course, indirectly complaining that he kept this from me, aka his client. You're right. It almost feels as though we're the only people in the whole world. He replied casually, without batting a lash. It felt like he was being evasive on purpose, but I couldn't be sure. That being said, I now have a firm understanding of their interpersonal connections. Wolf and Red Riding Hood, Ryoshi and Snow White, these two pairs seem very close. Yeah, I agree. I nodded along. Seems like Red and Snow White made friends with Wolf and Ryoshi right around the same time, too. Wolf mentioned February or March, and Ryoshi said springtime. And both took place 6 years ago. In both cases, the brothers were gazing out at the lake. I wonder what brought them there. Beats me. Shall we take a trip out there? Right now? Frankly, now that we were almost home, I really didn't want to have to turn around and head back again. But once we arrived at home, we'd have to give the brothers a status update. Going to the lake actually sounded like the less annoying option. You know, I never knew lakes had waves. I mused as I gazed out at the rippling water. It's going to be like deja vu from Snow White's route. Until I moved here, that is. I always pictured lakes as these perfectly still mirrors. The surface glittered beneath the rays of the faint winter sun. Yet there was no reflection to be seen. And it's always winter in all these, isn't it? Supposedly, the waves are created by friction between the surface water and the wind. Again, wow. Not much different from the ocean, then. I thought back to the days before I lived here. Back then, whenever I saw the ocean, I longed to travel beyond the furthest reaches of the horizon. No, a lake is not the same as an ocean. A lake won't lead you to distant lands. Snow White said that. I stared at him blankly. Not only did it feel like he read my mind, but on top of that, he disagreed. Sensing my gaze, he snickered. At least that's what I imagine they were thinking at the time. What? I'm talking about Snow White and Red Riding Hood. Oh, that's exactly what Snow White was thinking. They wanted to travel abroad? Yes. Though whether they were yearning for an escape or merely curious, I cannot say. Good question. I looked back at the lake and thought of the brothers. If they were looking for an escape, they must have really hated their lives here. Have you ever wanted to leave the country? No, I haven't. How come? Well, let me ask you. Do you wish you could travel to another country? Not right now. And why is that? Well, before I could answer, he pressed a finger to my lips. Wow, wizard, hi. Our feelings are one and the same, almost as if we share the same heart. Maybe we do. You could be me. He moved away from me and walked toward the water. Come to think of it, when did you first arrive here in the Looking Glass world? See, he never calls it the Looking Glass world. Like, doesn't it just sound like it ain't real? A year and a half ago. I answered, gazing at his back. And that was when you first met the 5 brothers? Yeah. Where were you before then? I lived in a different country. What brought you here? Well, I wanted to see him. Which one? I can't remember. It's you. Unless we're thinking Alice, but I feel like it should be the wizard. I dreamed of you again last night. Now and then I would gaze into the mirror. Unlike the real world, the mirror showed me everything, even the parts I didn't want to see. So see, it's like, because she said something about being in the dark like once before, and it's like that's where Alice was, but at the same time, it's kind of like it should be talking about the wizard because it's his route. You know? And then like this gazing into the mirror, he was in the mirror, so. I knew if I reached out, I could pass through to the other side. But the milk in the mirror looked revolting, so I wasn't motivated to try. In the mirror world, that same doctor called to me dozens of times. I'd figured out what he wanted, what he expected of me. The doctor being Ryoshi? Or, well, but we don't know, because I don't have the voice acting on, but like, I think there's voice acting in this game, duh. I don't have it on, so we don't know that doctor's voice if it's Ryoshi or not, you know what I mean? But after I stubbornly refused to perform, he must have given up. It's no use, the project is a failure. And with that, he discarded me. He seemed angry with me for being a brat. After that, he paid me less and less attention until eventually he stopped coming by entirely. I feel like, again, it's either it's all going to open up in this, or this is these little things are tied to Alice. But since each route is kind of its own contained story, this should come out in this one. But I still feel like it is going to tie into the overarching story. Gazing into the mirror, I thought about his comments. Defective. Botched. He wanted perfection. But what is perfection? To be visibly smarter, more sociable, more athletic, more dexterous than the average person? To play the role other people expect of you, in other words? In that case, I didn't need an identity of my own. Taken one step further, if no one needed me, then my entire existence was unnecessary. But this also would kind of tie in because we're in that place looking through the mirror, so are we just something that was created? We were never real? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of questions. Out of nowhere, something seized me by the leg, threatening to pull me down into its inky depths. Is Alice the physician? I ran blindly through the dark. I knew the meaning of this darkness, and I knew if I let it consume me, I would cease to exist. It felt like someone was saying, if you won't behave, then I'll lock you in the looking-glass house. It reminded me of a time not that long ago when someone said something similar to me. I couldn't meet their expectations, and so I was discarded and eradicated. Interesting. This is really intriguing. Something jostled me awake. Where am I? The next thing I knew, I was in a bed, resting against someone's chest. My pulse was racing and I was breathing so hard. It felt like I'd just run a whole marathon. In order to get a grasp of the situation, I opened my eyes. I hope we're leaning against the wizard. Oh! Look, I was really hoping there'd be a CG and I just love it. Look at his adorable friggin' eyes. Yeah, he kind of has saucer eyes to me. Like, he looks so sweet and innocent. He's gonna stab us, isn't he? I don't know if I trust his sweet face, but... Good morning, Lady Arisu. Ah! Don't scream, look how precious he is. Feeling his breath against my bangs, I let out a shriek. And I slowly looked up to find a pair of amber eyes looking back at me. Mr. Wizard? This is the greatest thing ever. My heart pounded even faster. Was I still dreaming? Look at just the way he looks at us. I want someone to look at me like that. I know it's cartoon and it's a drawing, but like, you just feel it, don't you? You're like, aw, kind of looks at us like so endearing. Or was I really cuddled up in bed with the wizard? I wish. Suffice it to say, it was a very romantic position to be in. But I'd only met him a few days ago, and our relationship was strictly professional. Not anymore. I had no recollection of ever taking things to the next level, so to speak. Surely this had to be a dream, then. But if this was the dream, then what about the other dream? Was that real life? As I writhed in confusion, the wizard regarded me calmly. Did you have a nightmare? Your complexion is rather pale. He's patting her head. His arm shifted slightly beneath me as he reached up to stroke my hair. Oh my god, I love him so much. Smack his hand away? I think... Oh, wait. Okay. Save file 1. Okay, we have to save here. Because this is where we save. So I'm going to go here and save here. Okay. No! We have a lot of no's coming up. I like how the guide for the save file for the happy ending is no, 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 no. That helps me. I have no idea what's going to go on. I just see a lot of no's. His peaceful smile and soft touch gradually put me at ease. I felt it was safe to trust him, just as I had the day we first met. I notice you haven't pulled away. Aren't you frightened? Huh? Nothing. Don't worry about it. A short while later, I was finally calm enough to ask him my burning question. So, what are you doing here? At this, the wizard smiled brightly. You wouldn't let go of me. Oh. That's when I realized I was clinging to his shirt. I'm so sorry. Hastily, I let go. Nothing to apologize for. It's nice to feel needed after all. Heat flashed through my body. Extrapolating from this conversation, he must have been stuck here the whole time I was asleep. For that matter, I couldn't even remember when we got back. And yet here I was in bed, and in my PJs too. And the rate we were headed, we might come under fire for some unscrupulous behavior. Shh, computer. Yet somehow he didn't look panicked in the least. I felt so pathetic, getting flustered when he clearly wasn't. It infuriated me, even though it wasn't his fault. Despite having only just let go, I grabbed his shirt again. He showed no signs of resisting. Instead, he continued to look at me, his expression unchanged. Then I realized something. He wasn't wearing his jacket. I was. It was unmistakably a kind gesture on his part. I kept getting these little glimpses of his personality that I didn't quite understand. And possibly because of that, I had a dream. A dream where I was about to be killed. The next thing I knew, I was telling him about my dream. Oh. So something about that dream is why we're here and we're having this weird, you know what I mean? Because, like, in Snow White's route, right, we climbed into the looking glass world. We were in a dream. We climbed into the looking glass world and then fell into a dream to, like, help him out of his nightmare. You know what I mean? Well, the looking glass, we climbed into the mirror, which was a dream world. But he was in a nightmare in the dream world. But we climbed into the dream world, which was in the mirror, to then talk to him and try to get him to wake up. And he imagined us in his nightmare. And you know what I mean? So there was all that. And then in this, we're in that weird dark place inside, well, they keep calling it the looking glass house. And we think we're going to be killed. And that's probably more reality than this. This is somehow a dream or something. And the doctor kept saying earlier, like, oh, you need to help them or whatever. So, you know what I mean? Like, is that I feel like that's more the reality and this is the dream. And we're like, I kept having a dream that this doctor was going to kill me, but it's not really, like, that's the real world. And our fear of him killing us is the you have to choose someone thing. Like, is the wizard the doctor? Like, in that real world? Like, I don't know. The next thing I knew, I was telling him about my dream. Hearing the tension in my voice, his smile faded. In the dream, I was desperately trying to run away from something. It was pitch black and I couldn't see, and I was terrified. Something grabbed my leg and I fell. The darkness crawled up my body, engulfing me. Are we gonna ask how we fucking got here in our pajamas with him in our arms? Then my mind started to fade, and I started to forget, almost like I was being erased. That does sound frightening. Yeah. The blackmail letter must be stressing you out. Let's bring someone in here. That'll help you feel better. Who should I get? He gently took me by the arm and sat me upright. I want you. The second I realized he was going to leave, I automatically stopped him. The shock on his face is adorable. The wizard paused for a moment. Are you really that opposed to choosing one person? Very well. As you wish. I shall stay by your side. With a self-deprecating smile, he got back in bed. Thank you. I felt so relieved. He's like, are you so opposed to choosing one person? I chose my person. It's you. Duh. And the fact that I felt this way made me hate myself. Here I was, sharing a bed with someone else, pouring my heart out to him, all behind my fiancé's backs. It felt like I was cheating on the men who loved me. I mean, you have 5 fiancés, and, like, what's wrong with having a 6th one? It's not cheating if they all know. I mean, I guess they're not expecting you to fall in love with a wizard, but I guess that would feel awkward. You're like, I have 5 fiancés, and this is weird. Like, I haven't asked their permission to bring a 6th man into the harem. And they were all kind of opposed to it to begin with, but... Anyway, as I was saying, I always thought I wasn't afraid to die. Why is that? I don't know. I'm not suicidal. My life isn't miserable, and I'm not spiritually enlightened or anything like that. but I've always been the kind of girl who would do anything to achieve her goals, so maybe I'm just prepared to die for my mission. What was it you said again? A mission so important it gives your entire life purpose? Your destiny? And yet, when I was about to disappear, I resisted. Perhaps you didn't want to die first without achieving your goal. Maybe? Yeah. Maybe I felt sorry for myself. Do you think maybe deep down I'm afraid of death? I think deep down we're all afraid of death. You know what I mean? Until you're in that position where you're about to die and you know it's your time. You know what I mean? I think there's always like a deep-seated fear of it. You know what I mean? You might be like, yeah, well, I mean, when you die, you die. You're probably never going to know. You might not even know what happened. You know? Or you might. But, like, thinking about it, if you think, and like, what if I died tomorrow? You're like, I kind of don't want that. Especially because if you think about it, there's a lot of painful ways to die. And so that's kind of a fear. You're like, you don't know how you're going to die. You don't know that you're going to go peacefully in your sleep. It could be traumatic. Aren't you a little afraid of that? You're like, I'm kind of afraid of the traumatic ways of death. It still means you're kind of afraid to die. I'm just saying. From there, the wizard explained that I had passed out at the lake. Naturally, my fiancés were all very worried, and they had been taking turns checking on me. Part of me wished he had told me sooner, but I was the one who stopped him and changed the subject, so it wasn't really his fault. When I walked into the living room, the 5 brothers all called for me at once.
Sister, are you sure you should be out of bed right now?
In a blink, I was surrounded on all sides and peppered with questions about my current condition. They all checked on you, but we must have grabbed the wizard at one point, because if he brought us... Who changed us? I passed out at the lake. Who changed me? Alright, I just want to know that. But also, honestly, Red would have been the safest to change you, because he probably wouldn't have even looked at you while he did it. Because he would have had his eyes closed. Because he would have been too embarrassed to even do a damn thing. But, like, the rest... I don't trust Gretel as far as I can throw him. That fucking pervert. You know? Snow White would have been too busy in his room. Like, you know what? But I'm just like, do I trust the others? Like, I'm not 100% sure. No offense. I don't know if I trust any of you to change me into my PJs. But, if they were all checking on me, like, were they checking on me while I was, like, clinging to the wizard? Because that might be a little awkward. Or were they checking, they rotated checking on me, and then at one point the wizard checked on me and I grabbed him. You know what I mean? That's got to tell you something. I was clinging to the wizard. Not any of my fiancés, but the wizard. I mean, we know this is his route. We're going to fall in love with him, but come on. Anyway. I'm okay now. Thanks for looking out for me. I smiled reassuringly at each of them in turn. Then, once they were sure I was alright, their attention turned to the wizard.
Hey, you! You didn't try anything funny with her, did you?
Such as?
You know, Did you pin her down in the bed and tell her you were going to take her tights off as an excuse to put your hand under her skirt?
I love how Gretel uses such a very specific thing that he did.
Did you pin her down on the bed and tell her you were going to take her tights off as an excuse to put your hand under her skirt?
Because that's exactly what he did in his.
Calm down, Gretel.
They're not telling him to calm down. Like, calm down, don't get angry. It's like, oh my god, simmer down, you pervert.
Now look what you've done. Red's passed out on the damn floor.
He's a little embarrassed about it, too. Because Red Riding Hood was imagining it.
When it comes to women, I'm not quite as tactless as you are, I'm afraid.
What? I was somewhat stunned to find them all carrying on like usual. Not that I wanted them to be at each other's throats, mind you, but I did feel a little silly for getting so worried. Not clicking. As I stood there watching their shenanigans, Kaguya whispered in my ear.
To be clear, they're trying to play it off, but you should have seen them last night.
Of course we want answers from the two of you, but that put my puppet in a tight spot, didn't it? Oh, I see. My mood quickly plummeted. They were all a lot more responsible and caring than I gave them credit for.
Are you tired, puppet? Perhaps you ought to go and have a lie down.
Yeah, maybe. As I spoke, my eyes were on Cinderella and Gretel as they ripped into the wizard. Not physically. Yet. Mr. Wizard? Yes? Would you come with me? Instantly, all eyes widened and all jaws dropped in perfect sync. And so I led the wizard back to my bedroom. Are you sure we should be alone together right now? I am your client, you know. I know, but I feel bad for your fiancés. The wizard's sympathy was always directed at them, never me. I knew I was in the wrong, and I didn't expect him to take my side every time, but I really hated feeling judged. I paused for a moment. Are you uncomfortable being around me? I looked up at him coquettishly. No, not really. Then what does it matter? I enjoy spending time with you. I sat down on the bed and smiled. I knew I wasn't playing fair, but if it would get him on my side, then to hell with the rules. He smiled dryly like he'd seen right through me. Meanwhile, I glanced around restlessly. Then I noticed something. Wait, what? I left my chessboard sitting on the coffee table, but the pieces had moved since the last time I touched it. Did you move my chess pieces? I pointed over at the board. I got bored while you were asleep. Whoa! I didn't realize you knew how to play chess. I rose to my feet and walked over to get a better look at the board. The white rooks were at G1 and E1. A white knight was at G3. A white pawn was at F4, and the white king was at G8. This is all like fucking Chinese to me. I know that there's spaces on the board, obviously, and I know what the chess pieces are, but I have no idea how to play chess. The black rooks were at D7 and H7. The black queen was at F6. A black knight was at G6, and a black pawn was at F5. Is there a reason why this is pertinent for you to tell me exactly where they are instead of, like, just saying they moved? Oh, this is a chess problem, isn't it? Chess problems. Puzzles in which the goal is to achieve checkmate under preset conditions. I grabbed the white knight and captured a black rook. For what it's worth, I considered myself pretty good at chess. I love how chess is, like, always seen in, like, games or movies or anything as, like, sign of intelligence, you can play chess. I mean, yeah, I guess, you know, there's some logic and strategy to it, but I don't feel like you have to be a goddamn fucking genius to play chess. I feel like it takes a lot to learn the rules. But I don't think it's like, I'm a fucking genius because I can play chess. It's like, I'm pretty sure average people can play chess. Are you going to be good at it? No. But, like, you know, it's not like playing tic-tac-toe where you're like, it's pretty fucking simple. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't know. But they always do this. It's like, oh, this is a sign of super high intelligence. And it's like, I feel like anybody can learn how to play chess. You know, do we all want to? Are we all going to be good at it? No, but we can learn. Some people might pick it up faster. And, like, certainly there are chess geniuses. There are people that are like, holy fucking shit, you're like a chess master. But, like, doesn't mean only intelligent people can play chess. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyway, it's just weird. Then I spun around and beamed confidently. Want to play a match with me? At my challenge, the wizard smirked deviously. I don't mind, but I hope you're prepared to lose. Oh! And there he is just sitting here playing chess! Oh, I love it. Oh, I love this. I love him just pondering the chess pieces with his jacket over his shoulder and his sexy little suit. I love him so much. We each set up our pieces, white for me and black for him. 6 years ago, 2 of the 5 brothers met someone new under near identical circumstances. Red Riding Hood met Wolf and Snow White met Ryoshi. As he spoke, the wizard moved his pieces. Maybe Ryoshi, Wolf, and the wizard are all the same person. And all of us are the same person. And like all the brothers are the same person. And Alice and I are the same people. And there's really only 3 people in this story. 6 years ago, Snow White would have been 13, and Red Riding Hood would have been 15, right? Hearing this, it suddenly felt very weird that Snow White was the second son, despite being younger than Red. See, this is what I was saying! Really, Red Riding Hood is older? Like, Red Riding Hood always came off as older, and it's like, to me, but then it's like, exactly this, like, 13 and 15. And like just now, because like when they said Snow White's the second son, I'm like, he always seemed younger than Red Riding Hood to me. You know what I mean? But this is weird. And yeah, because Snow White is our age. And then Red Riding Hood is older than us. Weird. And Gretel is supposed to be like a year younger than us, I think. Ryoshi was 23 at the time, and Wolf is the same age as me, so he would have been 13 too. I moved my pieces as I spoke. That's quite the age gap. Yeah, no kidding. That was something I'd noticed too. Not the age gap between Ryoshi and Snow White, but the age gap between Wolf and Red. 2 years? The way they talked about their friendship, you'd think they were the same age. But Red was already old enough to be in high school by that point. Then again, Wolf was a chatty, sociable guy, so maybe the age difference didn't even register with him. It's 2 years. It's kind of weird. It's not like Ryoshi and Snow White, but Ryoshi was more like an adult. They had like, you know, like we're friends, but he's like, you know, it's more like an adult, like a older sibling slash parental relate. I mean, it's only a 10-year age difference, so it's more like a super older brother kind of relationship. Where you're like, we're friends. Well, we're more like, when you say that, it's more like a sibling thing, but without being siblings. You know? But like 13 and 15 is not that drastic of an age difference to be friends with someone. You're forgetting one other thing. Huh? Their mother passed away that same spring 6 years ago. Oh. I looked up from the board. When our eyes met, the wizard smirked at me. A lot must have happened that year, huh? I averted my gaze bashfully. He adopted his usual pose, crossing his legs and resting his chin in his hand. I love his usual pose. Yes, perhaps it was a significant time in their lives. And one move later... Checkmate. The wizard declared loftily. I looked back at the board to find his queen checking my king. Your queen's checking out my king, baby. I lost? I told you at the start to be prepared to lose, did I not? Believe it or not, I'm quite good at chess. Rematch! I demand a rematch! Just like that, he had provoked my competitive side. Knowing you'll want to keep playing until you win, won't you? Sounds like you know me well. Believe it or not, I'm a sore loser. Yeah, I know. What? Stunned, I blinked at him. He sighed. Fine. We can play as many times as it takes to satisfy you. Okay, then. But not right now. Unless you forget your life is in danger. First, we must solve this case. I wonder if he's, like, quote-unquote, the physician and, like, putting out these things and trying to get her to fix, you know, whatever he would, like, set it up as a problem like this to get her to solve whatever it is he wants her to solve with their cases. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I slumped my shoulders. I couldn't argue with that. Plus, he knows, like, I'm very competitive. I know. What? Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, All right, then. In that case, I expect a rematch as soon as this case is solved. Certainly. With that settled, we wasted no time heading straight for Snow White's room. Today, we wanted to discuss his mother. Snow White! I click and it doesn't click. I don't know. Hey, Arisu. What's up? Sorry to spring this on you, but could we ask you about your mom? At this, Snow White scowled openly. No surprise there, of course. After all, asking Snow White about his mother meant dredging up his least favorite memories. Because of that, honestly, I expected him to stand there in silence or tell us to go away. But instead, he reacted in a way I wasn't expecting. He looked from me to the wizard and let out a sigh. What do you want to know about her? I stared at him in shock for a moment before quickly recovering. Well, what was she like? He tilted his head slightly in contemplation. She was sweet and innocent and cheerful. She never lost touch with her inner child. She sounds nice. Yeah, she really was. He smiled, then he looked deep into my eyes. What? I was just thinking, you remind me of her. I was like, oh my god, please don't tell me that they're trying to get me to, like, remember my children and they're all my children, because that would just be really gross. You remind me of her. Oh my god, no, this is some kind of, like, weird thing that makes... that would be so disturbing. Game, please don't. Please don't. You're in a mental institution and we're trying to get you to think about the horrible things you did to your children. Like, romancing them in different routes in here, because that'd be gross. Game, don't go to that level. God, horrifying. I do? He nodded. You don't look alike, but you both have the same sort of vibe. If she could have met you, I'm sure she would have loved you like her own daughter. She did. She always loved princesses like you. I wasn't sure how to respond to this, so I fell silent. Then the wizard spoke up. Snow White, I'm told you're acquainted with Ryoshi. And changed the subject. Yeah, I am. What of it? Snow White narrowed his eyes. He told me you first met at the lake. What were you doing out there in the middle of the night? Not much. Just looking at the water. He averted his gaze awkwardly. The Looking Glass Lake is famous for reflecting everything upside down, like a mirror. Really? That's a magic lake? They all do that. All lakes do that, wizard, not just that one. Your lake ain't special! Not like other lakes. How did you feel when you saw your reflection? Does it really matter? I hear you dislike your own appearance. Does that have something to do with it? Snow White pursed his lips together and glared at the wizard. We just got drama music, holy shit. All at once, this had taken a deeply uncomfortable turn, so I hastily cut in. Sorry for asking you all these nosy questions. It's fine. You don't have to apologize. He's right. After all, I'm the one asking the nosy questions. Sadly, I was unable to clear the heavy discomfort hanging in the air. The wizard relaxed his posture, letting his arms hang down at his sides. Allow me to change the subject. Precisely when was it that your mother passed? Evidently, he had no intention of going easy on Snow White. This again? I apologize, but we've encountered a few unclear points. Will breaking my silence help Arisu in some way? Of course. Upon hearing this, Snow White's hostile aura seemed to soften. Then he looked back at the wizard and reluctantly began to speak. As I recall, it was around the end of March, because it was still really cold. And that day I found myself standing outside the house without knowing how I got there. Mother had warned me time and time again not to go outside, yet I disobeyed her. The lights were on inside, so I figured Mother must be home. Nervously, I put my hand on the doorknob. I wasn't sure whether she would be mad at me or just worried for my safety. But as it turned out, the answer was neither. Instead, she stared at me with cold, unfeeling eyes. When I touched her, she was ice cold. Instantly, I knew she was gone. But I loved her so much, I just couldn't accept that she was dead. I thought maybe I was wrong about the whole thing, and maybe she would come home if I just waited long enough. That was what I told myself for weeks while I lived with her empty shell. And it was that spring that you met Ryoshi? Yeah, that's right. I met him after she passed. At the time, I was at my limit, in more ways than one. You met Ryoshi after your mother passed, when you ended up in the institution that we're all in. I'm just saying, I'm throwing it out there. My beautiful mother grew uglier with each passing day, and I couldn't turn back time. I couldn't bear it, so I fled from the house. And then you met Ryoshi one night at the lake. Yeah. He nodded quietly. Ryoshi was a good guy. I knew he would believe me. So I told him everything. If the two of you are so close, then why do you refuse to meet with him? Ryoshi and I both know that it's best we don't. If I can shoulder the burden of these painful memories so no one else has to, then so be it. Memories? But the wizard spoke over me. Beautifully selfless. Wow, selfish. I saw selfless and my brain said selfish. Wow. Beautifully selfless of you, Snow White. Sharing your story has helped us a great deal. However, this has only created more questions. Why was your mother so opposed to you going outside? She was a good person, correct? Why would she try to imprison you? If I had to guess, in the beginning, she probably just wanted me to watch the house while she was at work. But then she changed. How so? She grew cold. I don't mean physically. It was her attitude toward me. Cold and aloof. She was always busy with work. Whenever she came home, no matter how tired she was, she would always hug me. But then we started seeing less and less of each other, and eventually she stopped trying at all. She was exhausted. In the beginning, I figured she was just busy, but it was more than that. Then I looked in the mirror and realized I wasn't her real child. Interesting. Anyway, so we're going to wrap this part up here because we're at time. So yeah, we will continue Wizards Round the next part. So I will see you guys next time. Remember to give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to see more.